Today we got life skills coach from your best self, Anita Paropoulos. Thank you so much for coming through.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And, you know, maybe I'm not ADHD, but it's nice to have someone who has been diagnosed with ADD. You have been diagnosed.
Yes, I have. I was diagnosed a bit later in life. It wasn't really picked up at school, but in 2016, we say when the wheels fall off, it's a term where everything falls apart, then you usually get your diagnosis.
So what for you were those wheels that fell off? You know, what in your life happened that you just looked at it and be like, okay, well, something's up, something about me is up. What needs to change? Something needs to change because, you know, the wheels have fallen off.
So what happened to me was in matric, it sort of reared its head. So I failed my prelims, but my parents were pharmacists. So my mom put me on a course of Ritalin just to push through those exams. But I just coasted by and I was really average. Failed the prelims, and then the Ritalin really, really helped me. And then I went to fashion school where I didn't need to take medication because it was fun, it was interesting. Getting into the workplace, I noticed that I couldn't get things done on time. I struggled with the paperwork. I struggled with my colleagues. I was struggling to maintain all these relationships. I was really good at the job, good on my feet, good on my toes, but orders were coming in late and I just struggled. I felt like I was working 10 times harder than anybody just to get like a normal work day done. So I was pushing it to the extreme.
Was that because you felt like, you know, you had to do something, but then something else distracted you that seemed more interesting, and then you kind of, okay, well, where do I go? What do I do?
Part was that. It's also with ADHD, we struggle with time. So our concept of time is very different. So we struggle with the delay. Anything that is time management or involves time is where we really struggle.
And that's also something about ADHD is nothing to do with, you know, classical IQ. It doesn't mean because you have IQ that you are in any way potentially going to be less smart than anyone else. You know, IQ has no correlation or ADHD has no correlation to IQ. And that's also, as you said, you know, the certain things you had to do, it just, you know, it didn't entertain you as much.
There was no dopamine.
Yeah, there was no dopamine. And that's what's nice about ADHD is when the things that you do enjoy, the things that you love, the things that you are passionate about, that's where people with ADHD should go. Because, you know, as you experienced yourself, being in that corporate environment that you didn't really enjoy or you weren't that passionate about or have a particular interest in was difficult to get that focus.
Yes. So Richard Branson is ADHD, Einstein, all the creatives, a person who hones in on something that they love. That you can see it's that hyper focus, and they can do it for hours and hours and hours. Also very dangerous because you struggle with balance in your life. But once you find your sweet spot and you work around that. So yeah, for me, the wheels fell off when I was putting so much effort into work and then ignoring the other quadrants of my life. So my relationships were failing. My physical health, I was 46 kilos. I wasn't eating, and I was taking ADHD medication.
Was that also, you know, the certain side effects of, you know, reduced appetite?
Yes. So I went to a GP who put me on Concerta and didn't give me an ADHD assessment, but just said, okay, for the extra performance at work, this is what we give people. So I didn't have the proper test and I wasn't properly assessed. So everything just came crashing down. I was job hopping quite a bit. And my relationship fell apart. I moved out. And then I was involved in hijacking. And for me, that was almost like something putting that in the way and telling me to just stop and redirect. So I stopped work, I left the fashion industry, and I just spent a year trying to get my life back together. And I went for therapy. So therapy definitely helps, talk therapy. But with people with ADHD, we know what to do. We know what to do. It's just that we struggle to do it. So a life coach, a solution-based therapy works well because it's somebody who can see round the corner for you. That helicopter view, it's like we've got the information, but the planning and the problem solving is where we struggle. The time management, the emotional regulation. So it's just having that cheerleader, and we need positive reinforcements. So you flagged in school from a young age, you sitting in the OT's office, you in the front of the class, you're being told to focus, keep quiet, stop fidgeting, do better, work harder. So you've already got this thing in the back of your head that there's something wrong with me. So people with ADHD really struggle with their self-esteem. So a coach, an ADHD life coach, needs to work with you and promote your self-esteem.
This podcast is sponsored and brought to you by Dis-Chem Living Fit, with a wide range of fitness products and supplements suited and tailored to whatever your needs may be. Dis-Chem Living Fit have the products for you. You know, if you're interested in your endurance, if you're interested in general fitness, bodybuilding, powerlifting, whatever it may be, Dis-Chem Living Fit has the products for you. Back to the show. And it's a big thing because you see, obviously, it's more common to not have ADHD. So the majority of your class in school doesn't have ADHD. They can sit still. They can concentrate. Their working memory might be better. So when the teacher asks them a question, immediately they'll be able to, recite whatever was said. Whereas with ADHD, that's obviously reduced. And your working memory is obviously not as good and takes more effort to be able to have that of a normal person. Correct. So there is, and also the schooling system, I mean, most people know that the schooling system, there's no better way, I don't think, that there hasn't been brought about, but the schooling system doesn't help people get to, what they become later in life. Obviously, maybe it does because everything happens for a reason, but essentially,
it's not
everyone, it's designed to make workers, it's designed to make followers and sheep, and at the end of the day, you have to go through that to get to where you want to be, but also it's not the best place for a kid with ADHD.
Not at all. It's long hours of attention that you need to sustain. As you said, the working memory, we struggle to manipulate numbers and digits in our head. Also the emotional regulating. You're sitting with the same people, the same kids from maybe nursery school all the way up until high school maybe, and that's also where we struggle. We are impulsive, we interrupt, we say things we don't mean, and I think that's the biggest downfall with ADHD is that a lot of us, we're good-hearted and have a good intention, but it's just delaying. Think before you speak. Just hold on. Okay, I'm angry. Let me not just blurt out to this person that I can't stand them. So a lot of people with ADHD fall into those relationship difficulties and divorces, and so it's quite tricky to navigate.
I was roommates with someone that is still severely ADHD, and that's where I could see, I'm not nearly as bad as him. He's someone where if he's doing one thing, you cannot have a conversation with him. If he is on his phone, there's no way he's going to be able to even hear what you are saying. If he is playing his game, because he was big into computers, but that's also where the hyper-focus comes in, where he could just play games for hours and hours and hours because he was super passionate about it.
But it's also reinforcing, it's giving him dopamine. So video games give the dopamine stream. Homework does not do that. Paperwork, spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets do not. There's no dopamine. So we're almost like dopamine scavengers. We're constantly searching the environment for that feel good because it's lacking. So we used to have a really good ADHD psychiatrist, Dr. Shabir Jiva, that's unfortunately not with us anymore. And he used to say, we just want to feel lacquer all the time. It's just that lacquer feeling.
And that dopamine assists with concentration. So
Yes.
it helps you focus. And that's also what I want to get into is, things like a sugary diet giving you that sensation of dopamine, but then actually giving you the opposite reaction in terms of your ability to focus, because then the elimination diets, when you actually reduce the amount of sugary foods you're having, your ADHD can be slightly reduced and your ability to focus can be reduced. But then you seek the dopamine, so you seek the sugary foods, which then actually has the worst result.
Yeah. So there's actually a misconception there about sugar and ADHD. We actually need sugar in the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain, but you've got to do it in small doses and it's got to be in liquid form. So if you are studying or if you're doing a difficult task, Powerades, and you sip on it throughout the day slowly, because you actually need sugar in your blood system and you need to drop it in very slowly.
Yeah, I think it's those spikes, because then also
Yes.
then if you're sitting there with a packet of sweets, it's obviously not going to be as effective, because there's just going to be that dopamine drop.
Exactly.
It's going to be a massive drop, and then you're going to obviously
crash.
you're going to crash and have less concentration. I was watching an interesting podcast, and I don't know how much you know about it in terms of foods that you have slight allergies to. And they were saying that certain foods that if you have a mild allergy, so let's not say that you get stung by a bee and you'll die, like a mild allergy, or let's say nuts, maybe you get a slight rash, or, it's not a life-threatening allergy. They said that reducing those also in your diet helps with reducing ADHD. But then in turn, sorry to stop you,
go for it.
but then also in turn, by always, let's say you got a child, you find out, okay, they're slightly allergic to almonds. Let's never give them almonds because we know they're also ADHD. But then later in life, if they potentially have that almond, the reaction to it could be far worse. So there's also, it's like a catch-22 where, do you keep them away completely, but then later in life, the reaction could be worse.
Yeah. I just think it's everything in moderation, a healthy, balanced diet. If you're having a severe reaction to something like a preservative, that's not healthy anyway, but I just think, everything should be done in moderation and balanced. So the thing with ADHD is to walk this tightrope of balancing your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health. So diet, you've got to approach it the same way. But ADHD is a neurobiological disorder. So it's brain chemical based. So it's the way your neurotransmitters are not functioning properly. So diet does have a role, but not a huge role. It's more boosting up the dopamine, boosting up those neurotransmitters.
So because there's certain side effects with obviously the drugs, which obviously have a better effect in terms of increasing the focus, like Concerta or Ritalin or those kind of things. But then there's also been people that are emotionless sometimes when they take those, as also a side effect. Is that maybe the dopamine drop, but also they can be emotionless when they're on it, and then their focus and dopamine levels might be higher.
So that is the management of your emotional regulation in your also prefrontal cortex. So at the moment, if you are unmedicated, you struggle to hold back. You struggle to assess that voice in your head where it's like, don't go and approach that person right now. Don't laugh so loudly in class that you disrupt. It's just giving you that little bit of holding back, because we're very extra, we're very loud, we're very boisterous, which is great. I mean, it's lovely to be extrovert, but in this world, you've also got to be, you've got to have self-awareness and actually realize your effect on other people. Some people don't want that extra bubbly class clown kind of person all day long. Also the opposite effect, with ADHD, we've got rejection sensitive dysphoria. So if we're sitting in a group and somebody's got their back to you, the emotional regulation, you'll go down and you'll take it personally. So the medication, just helps you regulate those emotions. So I think
that's also, you mentioned like the emotional aspect of, let's just say, irrespective of the drugs, the emotional understanding of yourself and the self-awareness of that person's not actually upset with me because their back's to me. Don't take it personally because their back's to you. So I think that's also just that learning, and that's obviously just maturity and understanding people and understanding yourself and building confidence, which also takes time.
Yeah, and it's strengthening the voice in your head. So with ADHD, it's Ferrari brain, bicycle brakes. So the thoughts are running faster, and there are many. It's like a computer with a lot of tabs open. It's a screen with all your tabs open. So, an ADHD person will wake up and have like 500 thoughts. Whereas a neurotypical person is like, okay, today I'm going to do this. So that internal voice is calmer with neurotypicals. With ADHD, it's like 14 people talking at the same time.
Yeah.
So, it's difficult to manage. Medication is very effective.
Yeah. And for someone that obviously as an adult now, you can take matters into your own hands, and most people obviously watching this will be adults. But what type of signs could people look at themselves and be like, hey, actually, maybe I do have ADHD. Maybe there's something I can do about this.
So the signs are hyperactive. If you're just a person who cannot sit still, you'll pick up a book, you'll be like two sentences in, and then pick up another book, and then you'll say to yourself, I wish I could just read a page. You'll see a lot of your relationships might be strained. So, that's the impulsivity. So it's like you'll apologize a lot and, sorry that I said that. Your anger outbursts become quite apparent. It's distractibility. So people with ADHD or unmedicated have a lot of car accidents. So, you'll either, it's just going too fast and not slowing down. But there are jobs where ADHD So, if you're sitting in an office job and you're not getting it's not like missing a deadline now and then. When it's a constant missing of deadlines, not thinking about time, you're just not a planner, you can't prioritize. You're good in one way, you might be good with people, but then you just can't get your paperwork done. So the signs will come up. It's just, and you'll say to yourself, my colleague sitting next to me, I remember I had a colleague once who used to sit opposite me, and she used to type on her computer and talk to me, and I would have to stop. So it's like you said with your roommate, it's like we don't have that split of attention where we can multitask. If I'm working and you talk to me, I'm compelled to stop and listen to you. Or if I'm talking to you and there's something going on in the background, I'm compelled to go and look and see what it is.
And now we live in society where there's just so much noise and so many distractions, and it's difficult.
Very.
And I mean, ADHD has been around, since forever. But I think it was first clinically diagnosed in like 1908.
Yes.
But it's I was just watching some videos earlier today, and it's always been around because it's definitely something that is just, the same way certain mental thing, because it's not like a disease that came about because of, more like cancer, like those kind of things that have been more as we get older and more how plastics contribute and smoking, all of that. Whereas ADHD, something in your brain that just wasn't there and formed, and all of that, since the history of time, it's probably been like that. But now in today's society, there's so many more distractions, But on the other side of the coin, there's also fortunate enough you can create jobs for yourself that you enjoy.
Yes.
Whereas, 300 years ago, what could you do really that you're really passionate about? Like there was certain set jobs that you had to do. Whereas today, for myself,
flexible.
For myself, I've never had to work for someone else. I've been able to create jobs that interest me and that I'm passionate about and just have laser focus on those. But even within that, I still get bored every single day. I'm like, okay, well, this aspect is boring, but it just takes that mental effort and being strong and, sometimes also tricking yourself. I find that helps me a lot. Is if I really don't enjoy something, I'll just pretend this is what I love. I love doing this. Let me just really do this. And you kind of trick yourself into believing that you do like it. And I think that's just also in life. It's your choices that make, how you feel.
Yeah.
If you want to be unhappy today, just continue having negative thoughts. You're going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
But if you want to be positive, think about positive things and you'll become more positive. And I think if you don't enjoy doing something, just tell yourself you enjoy it. Look at the positives of it, and then obviously you get better at it. So how did you in today's world, eliminate certain distractions, or, was it the medication mainly that you found was most beneficial, or was it, the steps that you learned, or what really helped you, kind of just maintain focus in certain aspects of your life?
So for me, I did a complete life change. I started gymming, which is excellent for ADHD. It's almost like a pill in itself. They say 30 minutes of aerobic exercise every day is beneficial for ADHD. It's one of the most effective tools that we have. I also avoided jobs that were long hours and sitting and doing the same things. So I do art classes with them, and then I do life skills with them. Then I work at a rehab where I do art therapy. Then I've got my private clients. So just knowing, this sitting down and forcing myself into this box that I don't belong in is just not benefiting me. I can take the pills and I can force myself to sit at an office job, but my soul, was dying. So
was that, for you taking those pills, is that what you noticed most? Was just like, I'm able to do what I need to do, but then there's no more enjoyment,
tickling. It's not. It's we are very much out of the box thinkers, and that is the gift. So the Richard Bransons. Not saying that we all like that, but we have got the right brain chemistry to see things very differently. And we've got the mental capacity and the mental energy to really put in focus and effort into something that we really love. So that is the number one key for adults with ADHD. You have to find what you love. I know it's difficult because we've got to earn a salary and we've got to adult and we've got to do all these boring things, but you've got to design your life to suit you. You're not going to fit in. So it's just accepting that I'm never going to be that neurotypical normal person that's like my colleague who's sitting and getting all, and it's effortless. And that's what you fight against. You're like, how come it's so effortless for someone like that? Just accept that that's not, you don't need to be there. And I think giving yourself that time and space and looking for something that you really love is beneficial. And then also working with somebody else. We need scaffolding. They call it scaffolding. So we needing that support structure. We can't do it ourselves. So we are needing almost a coach or a spouse or somebody who can kind of keep you in that space and help you see time and help you. I mean, you can do it on your own. So it's a thing of putting it right in front of you, your calendars, you've got reminders. You need to put those systems. Those systems are what is going to carry you through.
You mentioned a spouse, and I'd like to know from your perspective, because obviously you said when you went through like that burnout phase and the wheels came off that you moved out. How has having ADHD affected, relationships in terms of, was it just like the emotional regulation, or what for you was the biggest, thing that was kind of detrimental to the relationship?
So for me, my number one value is variety, and next is like adventure. And so, if you ADHD and you have a neurotypical spouse, it's extremely difficult for them to also manage you and understand your brain. It's doable and it's very helpful when it works. But you kind of also you don't really want your partner to be your parent or we know what to do. So if you can do it yourself and set it up yourself, or meet someone who's also got ADHD and kind of figure it out, that's also very difficult.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's also,
that's like four people.
Yeah, both are very tough.
And then you have kids who are ADHD, and it's like a complete. But, for you, it is the emotional regulation that comes into play. But it's also, it's we get bored very easily. We need variety. And I think it takes a special person to also be with someone who's ADHD, and if they can completely understand the brain structure and the thought patterns. And I think it's about understanding and knowledge. So my husband at the time, we used to go and watch Dr. Jeeva's school talks. And afterwards he would say, like, I know your brain, I really understand now. So knowledge is power. The more you read up on it, watch. So there's Dr. Russell Barkley, who is excellent with his seminars. He's retired, but he has got brilliant videos on YouTube, and they are to the point, and all ADHD people can watch him because it's not this long droning on.
Yeah.
He's like, so he actually explains, he's like, the brain has got two sections. The front part is doing, the back part is knowing, and ADHD splits them apart. So you can have all the knowledge, you can have all the information, you know what a normal relationship is supposed to look like, but it's just, you're not going to do it. It's like the kid coming home from school is not going to do the homework. He's going to go play the video game. So it's just understanding that brain structure. And then saying, okay, this person's late. They're not choosing. I'm not intentionally saying I'm going to be late. I don't see time. I've got to have an alarm. I mean, to get here, today I had the alarm 10 minutes before. Everything needs to kind of be in front of your face. So if it's not going to happen up here, I know I should do it, but this part is not working well. So my management system is not working.
Yeah.
So I need to have external things that are going to manage me, and they must be in my environment, in front of my face.
Since you've obviously discovered the ADHD and you've had coaching and you've had help and you've had medication, have you seen, like, let's say the time management or the emotional regulation through constant effort, which one have you seen that, okay, now it takes less effort to be able to do the emotional regulation or the time management, or, what have you seen has kind of progressed through just actively trying to improve certain things?
So definitely the time management. So the structures that I've put in place, working, having my calendar with me and talking to me and making that notification.
So has your management of it improved? Not actually the time management. So you still...
I still can't see time.
Yeah, so you still, the time aspect of it hasn't actually improved, but your management of it has.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the scaffolding for me is working because I've got a system and it's become habitual now. So in the beginning, it's like brushing your teeth, when you're small. It's like, I don't want to brush my teeth. But it becomes a habit. And once a habit is instilled with ADHD, that neurological path is very strong and hard to break. So it's doable. It's just time, effort, and then looking at the positives of it. So people will give you that positive reinforcement. If you're a person who was constantly late, and then you're making it on time, they'll notice. And that's dopamine for us. That compliment is like, oh, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to be on time and I'm going to manage myself. So, it's management, structure, building your scaffolding is vital.
Do you have kids?
No, I don't have kids.
Okay, so for someone now, let's say, okay, you've got a 3-year-old, 4-year-old. You've been told that this kid has ADHD and they're going to be going through ADHD. What kind of things now as an adult that you have obviously learned about it, and then through all your teachings and everything, you would be able to help, someone that's now going to be 3 years old and experiencing life as ADHD. What kind of things would you put in place for your child now?
So I would say just knowledge and learning about it. So Richard Branson is who he is today because of his mom. So instead of telling him what he can't do, she told him what he can do. She focused all the attention and helped him focus his attention on his strengths. So when he was like, oh, Mom, I failed maths, I can't. And she said, oh, no, but you can do this and this. So don't worry about that, She kind of led him and built the scaffolding for him to feel empowered. So, I would say don't try and force an ADHD child or a neurodivergent child into that stream. You've got to approach things differently, and you can make it really fun. There's so many ideas. ADHD people do well with rewards. So less consequences and punishment and more rewards-based. So putting up charts, putting up those star charts, so things that are going to boost that self-esteem. The teachers will come and people will come and say, like, your child had an outburst and said this, failing at maths, not getting the homework done. You can't sit there and then buckle down and force it. You've got to work around it and change the environment as much as you can and make it enjoyable. Yeah.
So I was diagnosed with ADD. So, I could sit still. I've definitely gotten worse in terms of sitting still now, the older I've gotten. But I could sit still, but I just couldn't concentrate. No matter what, and essentially it's the same thing because it wasn't anything that interested me. So I wasn't able to concentrate on it. But the moment I was on the sports field, the moment I was, building a bicycle ramp, I could go outside and build a bicycle ramp. I mean, I remember going out in the neighborhood and just taking my bicycle and a spade and any bit of dirt, I would build a ramp, but I could be there for 3-4 hours. So it wasn't my inability to concentrate. It was just my inability to concentrate on things that didn't excite me. Is that really the difference with like someone with ADHD and ADD? ADD is just tension-based, but you're not hyper.
Yeah, so the thing that happened with ADD and ADHD, the girls at school were called ADD and then the boys were ADHD. But what they've done now is they've combined it. So there's no more ADD.
Oh, okay.
It's only ADHD. And the combined type, most people are the combined type now. So, excuse me, a girl at school, she will be the spacey, dreamy space cadet. But then she's also extremely talkative, which is a sign of that hyperactivity. So they've clustered them both together. So a lot of people are like, I have ADD. So it's just good to know that it's all one now.
Yeah.
There's just one cluster of it because the signs are there.
Yeah. You said that your doctor prescribed, Concerta for you without doing tests. That's obviously not the ideal way to go because also then, the amount that you have, the milligram dosages might be incorrect. Because I know my roommate, he was on Concerta and he was on such a high dosage that I tried, because I was studying for a test, and I stopped Ritalin when I went into high school just because I was not eating at all. I would eat breakfast, have a Ritalin, and then I wouldn't eat until the next day breakfast. And my mom was like, this is doing more harm than good for him, so we're going to take him off. And then I never went back on. My marks probably showed that I never went back on. But also, you know, it was also just my framework, and, you know, that structure wasn't really there to be dealing with a kid with ADHD.
Okay.
You know, so I don't even know where I was going with that. What did I start off with? I started off with something.
I think what you were saying is that you talking about the doctors prescribing.
Yes.
So yeah, a GP can prescribe, and they do have the DSM-5 test.
Okay.
They are qualified, and a lot of the time people struggle to get into the psychiatrist, and it's really expensive. So I will also say, go to your GP that you've been with, that you trust, and then don't give up. So if you've got to give it at least 2 weeks. So if you're trying a new drug or you're switching over, give it some time. Let your body adjust to it. It's going to be, I mean, all medication that you try is revolting in the beginning. You get the shakes and you feel terrible. You feel you've got a stomach ache, you've got a headache. That's normal. So the side effects do subside. So what I like to say to people, give it 2 weeks, let your body adjust, and then you can come down a dose. But medication, undiagnosed ADHD, it's more effective than any medication in psychiatry. We have the most effective medication. So a person who is medicated, who's ADHD, has a 95% normalcy rate. I don't know what to call it. The effects of our medication are so great. The problem is people give up. The problem is there are not enough diagnosed ADHDers because we blend in, but we just like that person that doesn't shut up, or the person who's in jail or in rehab. So the effects of unmanaged ADHD are, I mean, it's life-threatening, it's addiction, bipolar, depression. So, obviously the best way would be to go through a psychiatrist, but GPs can also prescribe. But also play with the different meds. There are many on the market. There's a new one on the market called Vyvanse, which is very effective. So they're getting better and they're improving. And you've also got to manage those side effects. So another thing to do is, if you're very sensitive and it affects your diet, try a low dose of a long-releasing Ritalin, and then give yourself a break. And only take it when you really need to study. You can have a weekend off. You know, you don't have to always be on. If you're going to a braai, you don't have to go and you don't have to have a Ritalin. So you've also got to just give it a chance, because it's highly effective. They are highly effective.
And then add it in with the exercise,
coaching,
and not having
yeah.
gross amounts of sugar in one sitting, maybe space out the amount of sugar you have.
Exactly.
So I think all of those things then will help.
Yeah, holistically.
Yeah, you'll be able to, be with normal people and seem like a normal person.
Yeah. But it's also just self-awareness and knowing that, if you're going to a braai and everybody's having a calm conversation and you're getting restless, just know what's happening and don't try and fit in so much. Just say, listen, I'm bored. I need to go do something, and just notice what's going on in your brain and don't suppress. So what a lot of us do is kind of suppress this restlessness. Work with it. This is not giving me dopamine. This is not tickling me, and that's okay. I don't have to like these certain things. So working with it is really important. Yeah.
And I think, fortunately, the way society is going is, if this doesn't excite you, if you aren't happy, you don't have to do it. Obviously, it's still difficult, as you mentioned, that you still have to adult and all of those kind of things. But fortunately, society is advocating towards doing things that you love, doing things that you enjoy, not just doing things to make money.
Yeah.
And people, especially with ADHD, need to do that, because then they will be able to focus because they're doing what they love, or at least doing something that will excite them more.
And do it really well.
Yeah.
I mean, Tiger Woods, Jim Carrey, Einstein. Oh, and very dangerous if you don't harness it in the right direction and put it to good. It's like having a superpower. If it's not managed, you can cause destruction. But if it's focused, it can do a lot of good. ADHD people are entrepreneurs, If I look at some people I know, they're doing charity and then they getting on a plane and doing this. It's this constant change, and you're able to do that. You've got that energy to do it.
And it's tough sometimes, because I find myself, if things are quiet, I'm just like, something needs to happen. And it's difficult. And also sometimes you need to just mature and to be like, doesn't have to be super exciting. That not everything has to be super exciting. I mean, just yesterday. So I went to gym yesterday morning, and then obviously I was working and doing stuff during the day. And then in the afternoon, I was waiting for a client to send me something, so I couldn't do any work while I was waiting. And then I was just like, I put on the TV. I'm like, no, that's boring. Then I picked up a book. I'm like, no. So then I just went to gym again. So there's certain, obviously it might, if you overtrain, whatever, could be bad. But there's certain things like that where it can make you be more productive. So if you just channel that need to do something into something productive. Like if I look at my dad, he's definitely got way worse ADHD than me. He's never watched a full TV show probably in his life. He's never watched a full movie. And also this is where the hyper focus comes in, because like he's also obviously an entrepreneur, but when he gets home from work, he'll be at work at like 8 and then leave at work at 4:30. Obviously he's doing what he loves because it's his own business. But when he gets home, it's not like gets home, puts on the TV and sits and relaxes like most normal people would. He'll go into his garage and work on his motorbike for like 3 hours, because that's also that hyper focus. He will go after work and go clean the pool. Then you'll go and mess with the sprinklers. Then you'll go out and sweep the garage. So his is like extreme.
But he's obviously like an engineer. He's got that engineering.
Yes.
How does this work?
Yeah. And that's what excites him. And that's where that hyper focus comes in, because he'll just like watch YouTube videos on like doing a certain thing on his motorbike and then go to his motorbike and do it for like 3 hours, which has helped him in his life. But then also been times in his life where things aren't fast enough or things aren't exciting enough. And
that's
it's that balance.
Because then you go look for it in funky places.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I doing here?
And that's also, I mean, he was a big smoker. And that's also the nicotine can help with focus. So when he was younger, like those are also the things, and the dopamine release. So
and it calms you.
Yes, and it calms you. And also seeking that dopamine release. Some people get into drugs, and also that's where the negative aspect can go
much so.
if you don't try channel it in a healthier manner.
I think it's like 70%. I don't know if my numbers in my brain, but I just say it and then
that's fine.
I deal with the comebacks. They say I think it's about 70% of addicts are ADHD.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And then the people in prison, the number is extremely high. So the system is not designed for, and it's always the kids that are in front of the class that are in detention. So less punishing and more figuring out how we can use this, or, change this direction or use this restlessness for good.
And if you look at schooling systems, the people that were always getting into trouble, the people that maybe the marks weren't as good, then become the business people, then become the hyper successful people in their particular field, because it's something they enjoy and because they've almost channeled their ADHD into something that they love, which has made them hyper successful.
Yes.
Obviously then on the other side there's the people that end up in jail. So it's kind of just your environment, your the parents that you have, the grooming, your support structure. And some people are more fortunate than others, and some people are very unfortunate and still come right. And it's just sometimes it's difficult, and life isn't fair. It's just not.
I mean, it's just, I think the more knowledge there is about ADHD, the more the misconceptions are changed, and also you don't grow out of it. So, a lot of people think I was ADHD in school and I took meds. I don't have to take meds. That's such a misconception, because it carries over, but the symptoms change. So a hyperactive boy in school will become an impulsive adult man. Like a talkative girl that sat and spoke in class will change to a inattentive, spacey, dreamy adult. So they just morph. And that's why it's so tricky, because, it changes.
Yes, I'm not showing the same symptoms as what I was when I was a child.
Yeah,
so that means I don't have it anymore.
You're not hyperactive. Whereas maybe you were hyperactive. Now it's like the kind of lack of concentration. Yeah. So it's still there. It doesn't go away. You don't grow out of it.
But also, I wouldn't change it. I think once you see the benefits that having ADHD can have in your life, and even certain degrees, like the degree of ADHD that I have, I'm very fortunate in seeing it as a positive and seeing it as, it has helped me be able to do certain things and work towards certain things, because that laser focus that I have on something that I enjoy, that passion that I have, that healthy addiction that I might get, has benefited me. And, I have ADHD essentially to thank for that.
Yes. And I mean, it's like ADHD people, if they're interested in something, they can sit and talk about it for hours. We are usually people's people. We like to meet people. We like to meet different people. And we like to be our own boss. I mean, we struggle with authority because of the schooling system and because of that oppositional defiance. Because it's like, I know what to do, and you're standing and you're telling me, and it just builds that frustration, because it's an internal frustration. So working on your own, we don't need to be micromanaged. But we're not going to do it the way you want us to do it. We're going to do it. You're going to do it Jesse's way. And I'm going to do it Anita's way. And that is frustrating for others, but it's brilliant, because it's out the box thinking, and it should be promoted. And I mean, it is. I think things are. I met a school boy the other day, and his mom wanted him to do coaching with me, but he's like, I love my ADHD. I don't need you. So I just laughed, because
very ADHD thing to say as well.
It's like, I love my ADHD, which is very cool.
So what other coaching do you do? Obviously assisting with ADHD, but you do life coaching.
Yes. So I have neurotypical clients. I have ADHD clients. I have clients with schizophrenia. I've got clients with bipolar, depression, anxiety. I specialize in the ADHD because I'm ADHD. And I would like to think I have created the right scaffolding. I slip up now and then, and I make awful mistakes, but I learn and then I readjust the scaffolding. So a lot of the time I will have varsity students. Like the majority of my clients are in varsity, and then the wheels fall off because the schooling structure and the system falls away. And then you're this adult and you have to plan your time. You've got mates, you want to go out, you want to go drinking. That's a lot more fun than studying. And then, of course, you've got all these assignments and exams, and you can't see what's going on. Where it's school, it's very regimental. So what I do with them is we print out the whole year, and we sit there and we look at when are the assignments, when are the exams. The minute it is in front of their faces, often I don't hear from them again because it's like, I just needed to see it.
Yeah. So are ADHD people more visual learners usually?
Yes. So it's because the management system in your executive functions aren't working that well. It's hard for us to sit and manipulate. So I'll give you an example. My ex-husband is a CA, And, you know, he will wake up and see the whole day planned. And he's like, I'm going this and I'm doing that. And it's linear. Whereas I'm like, let me look at my calendar. I've got to actually see the day. And that's how I see it. I don't see it in here.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I've found massive benefits in the start of my day on a piece of paper, just writing, okay, you need to do this for this client, put a box next to it, and when you finish it, you get a ticket. And you just write, and just it's not like a to-do list, because that thing is negative. It's a get-to-do list, because you get to do these things because you're fortunate enough to have clients and be in business. So just seeing it there, because for the first like 3 years of running my own business, I would try in my head, be like, okay, we got to do this today, got to do this today, and then you forget.
Exactly.
And being very spatial in terms of, well, visual, not spatial, and seeing it has helped me in terms of productivity, in terms of forgetfulness, reducing forgetfulness at least, and just the ability to be able to get more done because it's in front of me and not in my head.
Yeah. So I always say to the guys that I coach, I say, don't rely on your memory because it will let you down. Yeah. It's guaranteed that it's going to. I mean, I'm 39, and if I don't have that system and that calendar speaking to me and reminding me, I will miss the appointment, and it happens. Or if I have the time wrong, you know, I need that system in place. So don't rely and don't beat yourself up because of it. There are other things, there's systems that you can use. Like, you know, I used to also say like, oh, my memory, why? I can't remember. Just don't rely on it and put up the scaffolding.
Especially with learning or meeting people and remembering their names.
Yeah, so you can come up with creative ways. So,
like mnemonic devices and those kind of things. Yes.
And then just what I do, so when I work at the rehab on a Wednesday, I obviously get new clients. What I like to do is while I'm doing the class, so I introduce myself to the new guys because they rotate every 28 days, some a bit longer. I introduce myself and I don't force it. I don't say, okay, I've got to remember your name. I sit down, I let them do the class, and then I draw out a map of the class. So we've got the 2 tables, and then I'll sit with someone that's been there, and they can be my buddy to tell me what the names are. And then I write out the names, and then I go spend time with them so that when I'm doing the report and I get back, I look at the map, and I'm like, okay, red shirt, this guy was painting that, because I remember visually what they were doing.
Yes.
So it's just little systems, but don't force it. You know, find that way that's going to work with your brain, how you're going to see it.
Because I find myself, and also whenever, like, you know, when you go to inside someone's estate and then there's a code, I always have to every time check my phone to remember the code because it's like 4645 and then I just can't remember it.
Because
and trying to force myself to do that, it's not actually that effective.
No, and it's also digits. You know, people with ADHD really struggle with maths. That's probably the first subject in school where you'll see the failing happening. It's the manipulation of numbers, and it's very much an executive functioning. So with kids and maths and adults with numbers, have it in front of your face. You know, with kids, you can use the abacus, marbles, sweets. Make it fun. You know, ADHD kids love money. I know my nephew's ADHD and he's like, that's how he does maths with his parents. It's like, here are the notes. If you've got 200 Rand. So find the way that you like but
then you're able to focus.
Passwords, codes, have a little book, have a system. There's on your phone, there's that password keeper with Apple or I'm sure Android. So use the systems in place and don't beat yourself up that you can't. Just use the systems. They work very well. Yeah.
And if people want maybe ADHD coaching, life coaching, you know, how can they reach out to you? I'll put all your links below, but obviously just going through your website.
Yeah, so I've got a website and then there's an inquiry page at the bottom. So you just fill it out and you tell me specifically what you're wanting to work on and I'll get an email and then I'll give you a call and yeah, we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. This was lots of fun.
Awesome. And thank you guys for watching. Cheers.